Tansei. I am Pisquiasqueo Thunderbird Woman. My given name is Henri Giroux. I'm Woodland Cree from Driftball First Nations in Treaty 8. I'm a visitor here in Treaty 7. I have struggled with mental health issues since I was 19 years old. I know what you're thinking, that it was just a few years ago, but it's actually been 30 years. In that 30 years of struggling with mental health, I have had one suicide attempt, suicidal ideations, and numerous suicidal thoughts throughout my life. I have engaged with many mental health practitioners during that time. One huge hurdle, was that the therapists were non-Indigenous. So sometimes, practically all the time, I have to explain what it's like to be Indigenous before even getting to the root of the problem or why I was there. This likely resulted in most of my sessions that are covered through NHIB, so I didn't even really get to talk about or address why I was seeing a therapist. That's very discouraging. This past year, however, I was fortunate enough to be accepted into a program in the city to see a counselor that is not covered through NHIB, and she was Indigenous. Immediately, I was relieved that I did not have to explain the collective trauma from residential schools. My father is a survivor, and the intergenerational trauma that comes with that. Sorry, my dog. I did not have to talk about systemic racism through colonial practices, policies, and uneducated people. I was actually able to address my concerns and to really do the work needed to get back on my healing journey and to learn tools and skills to help me through the sexual assault, which is what brought me to see her in the first place. I have seen many therapists only to attend for a few sessions because they were non-Indigenous. I did try. I gave them a chance. It's just so disheartening and discouraging to not be able to talk about why you're there and what your problems are, but opposed to helping educate them about what it's like to be Indigenous. Made me feel so lost and so alone that I would just give up and struggle on my own. If counselors were covered by NHIB, my search for an Indigenous therapist would not be in haste. I would have had access to a counselor many times, and this would help me on my healing journey. I work full time, but I don't have the disposable income that affords me to see an Indigenous therapist. So I do rely on my benefits through an HIB, not just for my mental health, but for other things. I share my story today because I know the struggles of mental health intimately. And I don't want my Indigenous brothers and sisters to have to strive to survive the way I have without access to a counselor. There is nothing wrong with a non-Indigenous therapist. When you're Indigenous, you just know what it's like to be Indigenous and all of the BS that comes with that. When you're non-Indigenous, you don't understand, and it's harder to seek therapy with someone that you have to explain things to, just like normal everyday things about being Indigenous. It really takes away from the healing. It really takes away from getting to the root of the problem. It really takes away from putting you in a good mental health space. So I ask that you take my story into consideration and think of the number of people that can benefit from seeing a counselor through an HIB coverage. And that mental health Healthy mental health is a blessing. When you struggle with mental health, you shouldn't have to pick and choose who can support you. We should all be supported. Because of the support I got through a counselor, I'm able to support other people. I'm able to help others continue the giving. So thank you for taking time to hear what I had to say.